Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're tackling something really fun, journaling for new writers. So many writers have all these amazing stories inside them,
Oh, yeah,
but sometimes getting them out onto the page can be a little intimidating.
for sure. That blank page can be a little scary sometimes.
Absolutely, and that's where journaling can really come in handy. It's a great way to overcome writer's block, organize your thoughts, and really it's just a fun way to just explore your ideas.
Yeah, it really is like a judgment-free zone. You can just write whatever comes to mind, no pressure.
And speaking of things that make writing enjoyable, I have to bring up Lestallion journals. I'm a huge fan. Have you had a chance to check them out?
I've heard great things, yeah. What is it about them that makes them stand out for new writers, especially?
Well, first of all, they're beautiful. The faux leather covers come in all sorts of great colors like juniper green or rose pink. And then inside, the paper is so thick and smooth.
Ah, that's nice. You can really tell they put a lot of thought into the design.
Yeah, it just feels so luxurious. And it's not just about looks either. The thick paper means no bleed through, which is essential. Remember the time I was
Oh, tell me about it. I used to have this flimsy little notebook, and I was always so paranoid about the ink bleeding through.
exactly, it was the worst. But with Lestallion journals, you can use whatever pen you want, and you never have to worry about ruining the page.
Yeah, that's a game changer. And I actually knew someone who completely gave up on journaling because they hated how their pen would always bleed through the pages.
Really? Wow.
They just felt like, well, if my thoughts aren't even worth nice paper, why bother?
Yeah.
It's amazing how much of a difference a good journal can make.
Oh, for sure. And, Lestallion journals also have this built-in table of contents and numbered pages, which I find so useful for staying organized.
Oh, that's smart, especially for new writers who might be feeling kind of overwhelmed with all the ideas they have swirling around. It helps keep everything in order.
Totally. It's like having a roadmap for your creativity. And then, how many times have you had a brilliant idea and you jot it down on a scrap of paper and then,
Lose it.
oh, all the time.
Yeah, it's so frustrating. That's why I love that Lestallion journals have a little pocket in the back, perfect for stashing those little bits of inspiration or anything you want to keep handy.
It's like a little treasure chest for your ideas.
Yeah, it really is. And, all of these features, they all kind of work together to create this environment that just makes you want to write. It just feels good to use them.
Absolutely. It's all about removing those obstacles and making the writing process as enjoyable as possible, which is, I think, really important when you're starting out.
100%. And that leads us perfectly into our next topic, the actual process of journaling. What are some techniques that new writers can use to, really get the most out of their journaling experience?
Well, one technique that I always recommend is free writing.
Oh, yeah, free writing. That's a good one. Have you ever tried that? It's where you just set a timer for, say, 5 or 10 minutes and just write whatever comes to mind without stopping or censoring yourself.
Yeah, it's amazing what can come out when you just let go and let the words flow.
It really is. It's like a mental detox. You're not worried about grammar or punctuation or even making sense. You're just getting those thoughts out of your head and onto the page.
And sometimes those seemingly random thoughts can lead to some really great ideas.
Exactly. And I think that's the beauty of journaling. It's not about creating a perfect, polished piece of writing every time you sit down. It's more about exploration and discovery.
For sure, for sure. It's about giving yourself permission to play, to experiment, to be messy.
Yeah,
And in that messiness, you often find those little nuggets of gold.
absolutely. It's like a treasure hunt for your own creativity.
That's a great way to put it.
So, have you ever used any specific journaling techniques that have worked well for you?
Oh, definitely. One that I find really helpful, especially when I'm feeling stuck, is using writing prompts. Have you ever tried those?
Yeah, I love writing prompts. They can be so inspiring. It's like someone's giving you a little spark to get your creative fire going.
Exactly. And you can find them everywhere these days, online, in books, even on social media. But I have to say, I've been really impressed with the prompts on Listallion's blog. They're really unique and thought-provoking.
Oh, tell me more about that.
Well, they're not your typical, what's your favorite color kind of prompts. They're more like, if your protagonist could have dinner with any historical figure, who would it be and why?
Hmm.
Or,
Ooh, that's a good one.
right, they really get you thinking about your characters and your story in a deeper way.
That's so cool. I can definitely see how that would be helpful for new writers who are still trying to find their voice and figure out what they want to write about.
Yeah, it's all about digging a little deeper and exploring those different layers of your story. And, it doesn't always have to be words either. Sometimes I find it helpful to sketch out my ideas or create a mind map
Oh, I love that. Visualizing your story can be so powerful. I actually used to keep a separate sketchbook alongside my journal, specifically for brainstorming and character design.
That's such a great idea. I'm gonna have to try that.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And, it doesn't have to be anything fancy. Just some simple sketches or doodles can really help to bring your ideas to life.
I totally agree. It's all about finding what works for you and what helps you tap into your creativity. So, we've been talking a lot about journaling for new writers, but I think it's important to remember that journaling can be beneficial for anyone.
Oh, absolutely. Whether you're a seasoned writer, a complete beginner, or just someone who enjoys putting their thoughts down on paper, journaling can be a really powerful tool.
It's a way to connect with yourself, process your emotions, work through challenges, and just generally make sense of the world around you.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
And, speaking of making sense of the world, I think one of the most valuable aspects of journaling is its ability to help us develop a sense of mindfulness.
Oh, mindfulness. That's such a buzzword these days, but it's so true.
It is. And it's so easy to get caught up in the hustle and bustle of everyday life and forget to just slow down and be present in the moment. Journaling gives us a chance to do that, to create a space for quiet reflection and self-awareness.
Absolutely. It's like hitting the pause button on the world and just taking a moment to breathe and be with yourself.
Yeah, it's a gift. And I remember a time when I was really struggling with self-doubt.
Oh, we've all been there. That inner critic can be so loud sometimes.
It can. And I was working on this new project, and I just kept telling myself that it wasn't good enough, that I wasn't good enough.
Ugh, I hate that feeling.
Yeah, it was awful. But I started journaling about it, just writing down all my fears and anxieties. And something amazing happened.
What's that?
Just the act of putting those thoughts on paper, of acknowledging them, somehow made them less overwhelming. It was like I was taking away their power by bringing them into the light.
Wow, that's so powerful.
It was. And as I kept journaling, I started to notice a shift in my mindset. I started to focus more on the joy of writing, on the process of creation, rather than on the outcome. And that's when the magic really started to happen.
That's incredible. It just goes to show you how transformative journaling can be. It's like therapy for the soul.
It really is. And, speaking of things that are good for the soul, I had to give a shout out to the Lestallion journal I was using at the time. It had this beautiful deep blue cover that just felt so calming and inviting.
Oh, I love that. There's something so special about having a journal that you really connect with that feels like an extension of yourself.
Absolutely. And, as I was journaling in that blue Lestallion, I started to incorporate more gratitude into my writing.
Gratitude, that's such a powerful practice. It can really change your whole perspective.
It can. I would start each writing session by listing a few things I was grateful for, big or small, and it had this ripple effect. My writing became more positive, more hopeful, more authentic.
That's so inspiring. It sounds like journaling really helped you to tap into a deeper sense of self-awareness and cultivate a more mindful approach to your writing.
It really did. And that's something that I think can benefit any writer, no matter what stage they're at in their journey.
Totally agree. Journaling is a gift that keeps on giving. It's a way to nurture your creativity, connect with your inner self, and just generally make life a little bit more meaningful.
Absolutely. And at the end of the day, isn't that what we're all striving for? To live a life that is full of meaning and purpose.
Beautifully said. So, for anyone listening who's feeling inspired to start journaling, what advice would you give them?
I would say just start. Don't overthink it. Grab a notebook, grab a pen, or, treat yourself to a fancy Lestallion journal if you're feeling fancy, and just start writing. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be profound. It just has to be you. Let your thoughts flow, explore your ideas, and see where the journey takes you. You might be surprised by what you discover.
That's great advice. And remember, that blank page is not something to be afraid of. It's an invitation, a possibility, a world of potential waiting to be explored. So go ahead, dive in, and see what magic you can create.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into journaling for new writers. We hope you found it helpful and inspiring.
Happy writing, everyone! Okay, so we've covered why having a special journal like the ones Lestallion makes can be so helpful. But what about actually, using it? What are some good ways for new writers to get started with journaling?
That's a great question, and that's the best part. There really aren't any strict rules when it comes to journaling, but there are definitely some techniques that can help new writers unlock their creativity.
Like what? Give me some examples.
Well, one of my favorites is free writing. Have you ever tried that?
Oh, absolutely. Free writing is my go-to when I feel stuck.
Me too. It's so freeing to just let your thoughts spill out onto the page without worrying about making it sound good or even make sense.
It's like a brain dump. You're basically giving yourself permission to write badly, and sometimes in that mess, you stumble upon those aha moments.
Right. And sometimes even those bad ideas can spark something brilliant. The important thing is just to get those creative juices flowing.
And that's where the real power of journaling lies, I think. It's not about churning out perfect prose every time you sit down to write. It's more about exploring your thoughts and ideas in a safe space without judgment.
Exactly. And speaking of exploration, another technique I find super useful, especially for new writers, is using writing prompts.
Ah, yes, writing prompts, those can be fun.
They really can. And you can find them everywhere these days, online, in books, even on social media. But gotta say, the prompts on Lestallion's blog are really something else.
Oh, really? Tell me about them.
Well, they're not your typical, describe your dream vacation kind of prompts. They're a lot more thought-provoking, designed to really make you think about your characters, your world, and even the themes you're exploring in your writing.
I like that. I think a lot of new writers struggle with those bigger picture aspects of storytelling. They might have a cool plot idea, but they haven't quite figured out what the story's really about yet.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where prompts like, what secrets does your protagonist keep, even from themselves?
Hmm.
Or if your story was a song, what genre would it be and why? Can really help,
Those are great examples. It's amazing how a simple question can unlock so much depth and lead to some really interesting explorations.
for sure. And, it doesn't always have to be just words. Sometimes I like to sketch out my ideas or make a mind map.
Oh, totally. Visualizing your story is so powerful. In fact, I used to have a separate sketchbook that I kept with my journal just for brainstorming and coming up with character designs.
That's a cool idea.
Yeah.
My sister's a visual artist, and she's always saying that drawing helps her to see her stories in a new way. And that actually reminds me of another journaling technique we haven't touched on yet, character interviews.
Oh, I love those. It's like you're having a real conversation with your characters, getting to know them on a deeper level.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes they surprise you with answers you never expected.
It's true. It's almost like they have a mind of their own. I
Hmm.
remember once I was doing a character interview, and this character I thought I knew so well revealed a secret that completely changed the direction of my story.
Whoa, that's wild. It just shows you the power of tapping into your subconscious and letting your characters guide you.
It really does. And I think that's what makes journaling such a powerful tool for self discovery, not just as a writer, but as a person.
100%. And speaking of self-discovery, one thing I really appreciate about journaling is how it encourages you to reflect on your writing and see how far you've come.
That's so important and so easy to forget when you're caught up in the daily grind of writing. It's good to take a step back and appreciate your progress.
Totally. It's like you're creating a map of your creative journey. And that's another area where those Lestallion journals really shine with those numbered pages and a table of contents. It's super easy to go back to specific entries or track a certain theme or idea.
That's really helpful, especially when you're working on a longer project, like a novel, for example. You can see how your ideas have evolved, how your characters have grown, how your writing voice has become, more confident.
Absolutely. And sometimes just rereading old entries can spark new ideas or give you a fresh perspective on a problem you're stuck on.
It's like getting feedback from your past self.
Right. And who knows you better than your past self?
True that. And we're often our own harshest critics, but looking back at our earlier work with a little bit of distance can help us see how much we've grown and what we've accomplished.
Couldn't agree more. And, speaking of growth, let's talk about another benefit of journaling that I think often gets overlooked, mindfulness.
Ah, mindfulness. It's such a buzzword these days, but it really is so relevant to writers, isn't it?
Yeah, it can be so easy as a new writer to get wrapped up in the whole pressure of creating, the hustle of it all. And
Yeah.
journaling, for me, it's like a pause button.
Yeah, I get that. It's that quiet space to connect with yourself, away from the noise and expectations of the world.
Exactly. And that connection can be so powerful. Like, I remember this one time, I was really struggling with self-doubt. I had this idea for a novel, but I just kept telling myself it was too ambitious, too silly, just, not good enough.
Oh, that inner critic can be brutal. I think we've all been there at some point.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I started journaling about all my fears, all those anxieties I was feeling. And you know what? Something really interesting happened.
What was that?
Just the act of getting all those thoughts out of my head and onto paper, it actually, made them less scary.
Wow, I can see that. It's like you're taking away their power by bringing them out into the open.
Yeah, exactly. And as I kept journaling, I started to notice a real shift in my mindset. I was able to focus more on the joy of writing, on the process itself, rather than getting caught up in the results.
I love that. I think that's when the real magic happens, when you can let go of those limitations and just allow yourself to create.
For sure. And, speaking of magic, I have to mention the Lestallion journal I was using at the time. I know we've talked about their journals already, but there was just something about this one. It had this gorgeous deep blue cover, and it just felt so calming and inviting.
I get that. Certain objects can have that effect on us. I have this favorite pen I always use for journaling, and it just feels right in my hand.
I totally get that. It's like having a trusted companion on your writing journey. And, as I was writing in that blue Lestallion, I started to bring more gratitude into my writing.
Oh, gratitude. That's so powerful, isn't it? It can really shift your perspective and open you up to so much more.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I would start each writing session by just listing a few things I was grateful for, big or small, and it's like it had this ripple effect. My
Wow.
writing became more positive, more hopeful, and just, I don't know, more authentic.
That's so inspiring. It sounds like journaling really helped you tap into a deeper sense of self-awareness and really cultivate a more mindful approach to your writing.
It really did. And I honestly think that's something that any writer can benefit from, no matter where they are in their journey.
Totally. Journaling is such a valuable tool for personal growth and creative exploration. It's a way to connect with yourself, process your experiences, and just let your imagination run wild.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, isn't that what writing is all about? Sharing a piece of yourself with the world.
Beautifully said. So, for anyone listening who's now feeling inspired to start journaling, what advice would you give them?
I would say don't overthink it. Just grab a notebook and a pen, or hey, treat yourself to a beautiful Stallion journal and just get started. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be profound. It just has to be you. Let your thoughts flow, explore your ideas, and see where it takes you. You might be surprised at what you discover.
That's such great advice. And remember, that blank page isn't something to be afraid of. It's an invitation, a possibility, a whole world waiting to be explored. So go ahead, dive in, and see what you can create.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into journaling for new writers. We hope you found it helpful and inspiring.
Happy writing, everyone.